Oi, what you mean? No sounds in space? Are you having a stupid? Every orc knows that dark guy's louder in space because there's nothing holding up the sound.
Picture in your inner eye the agrarian world of Erebus, Gothic sector, subsector Gethsemane. A tranquil ball of blue and brown and green sparkling in the light of its sun. Let your mind's gaze travel to the outer reaches of this solar system, where Commodore Galpin is leading his Dictator-class cruiser Fury of Martin on a deep space patrol. In the depths of space, his astropathic arrays discover a small flotilla of Necron ships, drifting seemingly lifeless through the fringes of the system. This can only mean the Xenos are trying to sneak into Imperial space for an attack. Certainly, his ships will be spotted momentarily and the Necrons will sweep into the system, launching an assault against the unsuspecting defenders. Out of communications range, Commodore Galpin decides on a surprise attack, despite his small force being vastly outgunned. His hope is to execute a hit-and-run attack, doing enough damage so that the Necrons will be forced to delay their attack, thus buying time enough for his ships to race back into the system and rouse the defense forces. The Necron flotilla consists of two Scythe-class harvest vessels. One has been given the designation Nosferatu, the other has been designated Hela by the astropaths. Scythe-class cruisers sport a wide array of weapons: fearsome gauze particle whips, a powerful lightning arc array, an area-affecting star pulse generator, and finally portals with which they can perform additional hit-and-run attacks. Supporting the two scythes is a Shroud-class light cruiser, designation Orcus, a stealthy vessel capable of boosting communication lines. It has a very light hull, but nevertheless brings an impressive amount of lightning arcs to the battle. Finally, escorting the cruisers is a squadron of 4 Jackal-class raiders, designation Whale. These escort ships can amass quite some firepower, combining the lightning arcs. And woe if they come across a damaged ship. Each of the Jackals carries a portal, and 4 of them can easily overwhelm and cripple a weakened opponent. Bearing down on them, with fusion drives ablaze, is the Fury of Martin, a Dictator-class cruiser. Commanded by Commodore Galpin, this impressive war machine comes armed with comparatively light weapon batteries to its broadsides. Her main strength lies in her launch base, able to field 4 squadrons of strike craft total. In addition, her prow holds 6 torpedoes, ready to be unleashed at the enemies of mankind. Backing her up is the Gothic-class cruiser Stalwart, a powerful vessel carrying devastating firepower with 4 lance batteries to each side as well as torpedoes in the prow. The duo of Imperial cruisers spring their surprise assault. Moving in a tight formation, they concentrate their strength. They close in on the unsuspecting Jackal Raider squadron designated Whale. Their direct fire weapons are mounted on their broadsides and have no targets in their firing arcs. But both vessels launch a spread of 6 torpedoes each at the second closest Jackal. In addition, the Fury of Martin scrambles a full squadron of bombers on the closest raider. The escorts fire on the incoming ordnance with a turret strength of 1. The bombers make it through unscathed to deploy their deadly payload. They manage to do 12 attacks, 2 of which hit. The Raider's 6+ save is unsuccessful. The second Jackal manages to destroy 1 torpedo out of one of the salvos. Of the remaining 11 torpedoes, 2 lock on and punch through a living metal hull, defeating its save roll. In the first barrage, half of Whale's squadron is turned into clouds of rapidly expanding gas and small debris. The torpedo salvos travel on, overlap behind the Raider, and explode. The Necron ships are sluggish to respond to the sudden threat. Their leadership is reduced by 1 for d6 turns. The dice have spoken. 5 turns of confusion. They must have been caught in hibernation. The Shroud cruiser designated Orcus tries to activate its inertialess drive and go full speed ahead, but with a roll of 12 it fails. That particular Necron crew has to be comprised of some heavy sleepers. So Whale Squadron and the Scythe Cruiser Nosferatu are on their own to deal with the Imperial Navy, for now. The remnants of Whale Squadron perform a sharp turn in close distance to get at least one shot at the cruisers, hoping to get past them to safety. Nosferatu moves ahead the required 10 centimeters, turns to port, then moves up to the full distance, trying to get in range. The light cruiser Orcus has failed to activate its inertialess drive, so it can't just swoop over the battlefield and has to rely on ordinary propulsion, copying Nosferatu's maneuver to get into a better position. The second Scythe class moves ahead further before turning, trying to get around the asteroid field. The Jackal Raiders take aim on the Gothic cruiser. Their combined lightning arc firepower is 8 on a capital ship closing that comes down to 6. Lightning arcs always treat targets as closing, but in this case, Stalwart actually presented its bow to the Raiders, so they had to go against the heavily armored front of 6+. They land one hit, which splashes harmlessly against its shields. Nosferatu is not yet in range, so the turn passes again to the Imperium. Commodore Galpin gives the order to reload ordnance. With a leadership roll of 7, the Fury of Martin refuels their bomber squadrons, and a throng of crewmen and servitors heave new torpedoes into the launch tubes. Stalwart's leadership is reduced by 1 because of the blast marker it has in contact, but with a roll of 5 it also reloads its torpedoes. Rearmed, the Fury of Martin burns 10 centimeters ahead, turning 45 degrees to port and going their maximum speed of 20 centimeters total. With this maneuver, they acquire a firing solution in Whale Squadron with the broadside weapons, while having Nosferatu in their front arc. Stalwart also has to move 10 centimeters forward before turning the same way, but cannot keep up with their command ship due to the speed reduction caused by the blast marker. Blasted blast markers. Looking into the broadside weapons of 2 Imperial cruisers, Whale Squadron tries to brace for impact, but fails to react in time with a leadership roll of 9 against a still reduced value of 6. Wasting no time, Fury of Martin opens up on the raider moving away from it. Using the better targeting bracket means they have more dice, but can potentially only hit one of the jackals since the other is moving a beam. Its weapon strength of 6 gets reduced to 2, but due to close range is raised again to a 3. Against the armor of 6+, all shots miss. Stalwart trains its lance batteries on the squadron, and vast amounts of energy hurtle toward the Necron escorts. Its lances always hit on a 4+, and all of their 4 shots find their marks. The Raiders fail all of their 6+ saving throws and are violently evaporated. Both cruisers launch a salvo of torpedoes at the Nosferatu, closing in on them. Both salvos have to cross the blast marker. On a 6+, they detonate prematurely, but both make it through with rolls of 5 and 2. The Scythe cruiser's defense turrets are vastly more powerful than those of the Jackal Raiders were, and its 3 turret strength manages to take 2 torpedoes out of the first salvo and 1 out of the second. The torpedoes of the Fury of Martin fail to lock on, and all 4 torpedoes travel on, hopefully encountering the Shroud Cruiser Orcus further downrange. But the second torpedo salvo manages to land 3 hits on Nosferatu. It saves one of those on a 5+ roll of 2, 2 and 6. None of the damage was a critical hit, but still a devastating blow, and 2 torpedoes fly on. Since Stalwart fell behind, this time the torpedoes don't overlap and continue to go on. In the end phase, 2 blast markers disperse. Seeing the chance to do some real damage to the Imperials in return for the loss of Whale Squadron, the Nosferatu acquires a target lock with a leadership roll of 6, needing a 7, since the proximity of ships on special orders compensate for the negative surprise modifier. Orcus once again tries to activate its inertialess drive to join the fray with its powerful lightning arc batteries, but fails on a 10. Keeping its course steady, the Scythe Harvester designated Nosferatu moves its required 15 centimeters right into the path of the Imperial cruisers to unleash its arcane weapons on them. The Shroud Light Cruiser goes ahead its full movement of 30 centimeters, clearing the path of the torpedoes and closing in on the engagement. The second Scythe Cruiser designated Hela completes its turn around the asteroid field. The Nosferatu's weapon ports begin to glow, spitting eldritch energies onto the Fury of Martin. Its 8 lightning arcs are reduced to 6 for a capital ship closing, but with rerolls they manage to score 2 hits on a dictator's front armor of 6+, negating its shield. Seeing his protection fail, Commodore Galpin calls brace for impact successfully with a roll of 8. His leadership reduced by the blast markers he just received, but boosted by the Nosferatu on target lock. This decision will cost him firepower in the turn to come, but as it turns out, it saves his ship a world of hurt. The star pulse generator fails to hit both Imperial cruisers, but then the particle whips of the Nosferatu rip into the Fury of Martin's armor, now unprotected by shields. As lance weapons, they hit on a 4+. With rerolls, 2 of the 4 hit, but the Fury of Martin makes both 4+ save rolls, the crews managing to keep critical systems from failing, patching up leaks in a hurry and rerouting systems on the fly. A keg of rum for the engineering crew. In the ordnance phase, the torpedo salvos speed past the Orcus and are headed for empty space. The markers are removed. In the end phase, 2 blast markers are also removed. Stalwart tries to acquire a target lock, but with a leadership roll of 11, the orders get lost in the interference of the battle heating up rapidly. The Gothic cruiser still moves ahead to cut off the Nosferatu despite struggling to find an optimal targeting solution. The massed might of the Lancers will have to be enough. Fury of Martin is still on brace for impact and lumbers forward before turning towards the Scythe cruiser. Commodore Galpin has managed to wipe out the Necrons' escort squadron, weakening their strength. But if he manages to cripple one of their cruisers, it will delay the inevitable Necron attack on the agrarian world of Erebus significantly. The lockdown Fury trains her weapon batteries on the damaged Scythe cruiser. Their weapon strength halved at capital ship Abeam comes to 2 dice, only because of close range. Of those 2, 1 manages to hit, the living metal unable to prevent the Necron cruiser from losing its 3rd hull point. The bombers are still standing by, refueled in the hangars, but since the crew is still busy from bracing for impact, only half of them would be able to take off, so they bide their time. Having taken another point of damage and facing down 4 lance batteries, Nosferatu braces for impact with a 3 on its leadership roll. 2 of the stalwart lances gouge deep cuts into Nosferatu's hull, only for the living metal to immediately seal up again. In the end phase, 1 blast marker is removed. Dangerously close to being crippled, the Nosferatu decides to retreat and fades out. This reduces the Necron's strength to merely match that of the Imperium, but the risk was just too great. Finally having woken up, the Orcus locks its weapons onto the Stalwart and closes in, illegally making turns while on lock on special order, Xenos trickery. No matter, as we will soon find out. Meanwhile, the Scythe Harvest ship Hela spins up its inertialess drive, rolling a 5 and gaining a total movement of 80 centimeters. Easily swooping around the asteroid field, it moves in behind the Imperial patrol to support its light cruiser. Even with rerolls, the 10 weapon batteries on the Shroud only manage to take 1 point off the Stalwart's shield, which has gone into brace for impact in anticipation of a much harder punishment. Adding to this misfortune, Hela has overshot its target and can only target the undamaged Fury of Martin. Even at half strength, at this range, its weapons are fearsome. The lightning arcs stripping away the Dictator's shields and inflicting the first point of damage on its hull. The particle whips on the other hand miss, but the remaining active portal pours a stream of Necron warriors directly onto the ship. That strike squad manages to damage the engines, dealing another point of damage to the hull before being pushed back and neutralized. In the end phase, a single blast marker dissipates. The Imperial cruisers keep their heading and move 10 centimeters each, keeping Orcus in their broadsides. Now that the Necrons have mustered an effective defense, they plan on firing a final volley of broadsides and then retreat, trying to reach the inner system's communication stations before the Necrons. Stalwart lances are at half strength, but still the Shroud cruiser tries to brace for impact, but fails to activate its living metal defenses. Still, the lance shots go wide of the target. Fury of Martin is back at full weapon strength, training its weapon batteries on the closing Orcus at almost point blank, barely 40,000 kilometers away. And it deals a hit to the Necron cruiser, which it cannot compensate with its living metal. Following this broadside, Commodore Gulpin finally unleashes his Starhawk bombers again. Crossing the short distance to the Shroud vessel, they lose one of their number to the Shroud's defense turrets. The remaining bombers rain 11 miniature suns onto the enemy hull. 2 of the warheads penetrate the Necron's hull and detonate inside its armor, dealing terrible damage, crippling the light cruiser. One even manages to critically damage the Shroud's drive systems. The Necron ships had expected to finally be able to inflict some real damage on the Imperials, but the combined firepower of 2 cruisers almost obliterated their Shroud cruiser. To preserve its last hull point, it decides to dematerialize, and the last remaining Scythe cruiser, now woefully outnumbered, follows suit. Battered and beaten, the Necrons are forced to rematerialize back at their space docks. The loss of their escorts and crippling of their stealth vessel forces them to delay their plans. At least they did not leave any of their ships to be taken out and left as a drifting hulk for the Imperials to crawl over. That would have been a real disaster. Whatever their plans were, and wherever the Necrons were headed before, Erebus is now definitely in their dead cold sight. With a combination of determination, skill and luck, Commodore Gulpin has managed a very dangerous task. The 2 cruisers under his command have cut a swath of destruction through the Necron flotilla, not only holding them back but wiping out their escort, crippling their light cruiser and damaging a harvest vessel, forcing it to retreat. All the while suffering only minimal damage themselves. This day has won the Commodore a commendation. If he continues to show this measure of competence, he might rise high in the Imperial fleet, or it might take him into a battle too dangerous to survive. We will follow his career closely. Well, hi there. First of all, thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video. I was inspired by Wargamer Stories' Blue Hole campaign for Battletech Alpha Strike. There should be a link somewhere around here. It's definitely worth a watch. So this has been my most complicated and involved video so far, and I'm okay with the result as a first try, but there are still areas to improve. So things I have identified is, first of all, get a game mat, like to get rid of any reflections and just have a more interesting play area. Get a better camera position. I did some shooting from the top side and did some editing trickery to get it done, but like the angles are not true in the video as they were in a real top-down view, so get that done. Then my voice acting could be more energetic. That's true. I'll work on that. So last of all, I was struggling with the visual and sound effects. I scraped things from the internet, like lots of things I got from Pixabay, and like for the sound and music I got a Humble Bundle at some point, but still I am looking for some better or professional visual effects especially. So if you know where to get some, let me know. If it's on the cheap and not some dubious subscription model where I can't see what I'm getting beforehand. So let me know. If you have any other things you thought were good or were bad or could be improved, hey, just drop me a message in the comments and who knows, maybe I will improve on the thing. Alright, thanks again, have a good time.